What does Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted hide from the player off camera in the intro cutscene, main hub, and FNAF 1 areas? Help Wanted is a virtual reality experience that leads the player through dozens of mainline FNAF-inspired minigames, including a faithful recreation of the very first Five Nights at Freddy's game. Today, we'll be pulling back the curtain and taking a look at some things we're not typically supposed to see. And of course, it wouldn't be a HorrorScoped video if we didn't break some stuff along the way, like viewing a broken version of the Showtime performance in the hub. There is, of course, a lot more than that too, so I hope you enjoyed today's look behind the scenes of Help Wanted. Now, real quick, let's do a short recap of everything that happens in this portion of the game, that way we're all refreshed on it. So first we arrive at the title screen, which appears to take place in a FNAF 1 inspired pizzeria. And after starting a new game, we'll be treated to an introductory roller coaster ride. After going through a set of doors, we'll pass by a handful of billboards detailing some of the franchise's history before being presented with a waiver. After accepting and passing through another door, we arrive at the game's main hub, which appears to be located within a Freddy Fazbear's pizzeria. Now, as for the FNAF 1 minigame itself, it's a mostly faithful recreation of the original, but in a 3D space. You must observe the cameras in order to keep tabs on the approaching animatronics, and close your doors in order to prevent them from reaching you. You also have to manage your power usage to avoid running out before the night ends at 6 a.m., with this challenge becoming more difficult as each night passes. On night 5, the game takes on a grayscale appearance, and the lights indoors will begin glitching out at random intervals. The jump scares in this level are also different, as they'll now showcase the hard mode variants of the cast instead of the standard animatronics. That's it for the recap though, so let's head back in time and take a look at the intro sequence. So first and foremost, we can take a look at this intro cutscene from a different angle. And it's actually a lot smaller than you'd think. The cart we ride in is placed upon a length of track, and there is a one-sided piece of geometry placed directly behind us. This object is used to create the illusion that the track sort of fades out of existence, when in reality, it extends quite a ways behind us. We just can't usually see it. We can also take a look at our sweet ride from a different angle, and it's actually pretty cool looking. The cart itself is brown, and the front is modeled to resemble Freddy Fazbear himself. All is missing is the iconic top hat. Now as we glide along this track, these billboards usually light up as we pass by them. And with the lighting effects turned off, you can see each of them already loaded in. They're visible before we even reach that room. When passing through the doorway at the end of the track, it's typically pitch black, and we cannot see anything beyond the door itself. But since the post-processing effects are currently disabled, you can see there is a white sphere just kind of floating at the very end. The outside of the room itself is covered in a default texture, and you can see also that the track extends a short ways beyond that back wall. As the player reaches the white sphere, the cart will immediately stop as the cutscene ends and we arrive at the hub. Arriving at the main hub area, we can take a closer look at this map's design, where we'll find that the doors in this location don't lead anywhere. The hallways surrounding the player do not lead anywhere either, and just out of sight, they simply lead into the void. Heading over to the prize counter, we can spend Faz tokens to obtain various toys and collectibles. And moving the camera beyond that back wall, we'll see that the crane is currently suspended here until the player makes a selection. There's also a white cube stored back here as well, but I'm not entirely sure of its purpose. When we select a prize, the crane will slide out through the door and drop it on the counter in front of us, where it will then exit through another door on the right-hand side. After leaving the player's sight, it will just then teleport back to its original location until it's activated once more. Something kind of interesting though is that the crane and door are not synced properly, so they will clip through each other at the end of this animation. Now if we head out of bounds to the right of the stage, there are a couple of objects a little ways out that are pretty interesting. There's a disc-shaped flashing light out here, as well as a button that says End Showtime. Now at first I was confused as to why this was out here, but the reason is actually pretty cool. So to my understanding, there was originally supposed to be a show that could be unlocked later in the game, where the original cast would sing and perform on stage in front of us. This was later scrapped, but apparently this performance remains within the game's files. This Showtime button is currently deactivated, but we can force the performance to begin before the prerequisites are completed, although it doesn't work the way I had hoped. The moment we activate Showtime, the player will be teleported to a separate area within the same map. This section of the level has Pirate's Cove, the main stage, and some standard map assets, but nothing else. The performance itself will not begin, considering we've broken the game's logic. But taking a peek behind the curtains reveals each of the cast just T-posing in their usual spots. Over in Pirate's Cove, we can see Foxy T-posing as well. Now off to the side, we can see a large piece of gray geometry placed out of bounds, and this is used to obscure the player's view of the rest of the map. Flying beyond it, we can see that the rest of the level is still loaded in, except the stage and Pirate's Cove are currently missing. While it's over here though, the missing assets were restored and the Showtime area that we teleported to had unloaded. I'm assuming this is because even though the show never started, enough time had passed for the performance to end, resulting in the player being warped back to the main hub. Before moving on from the showtime area, I activated the black light switch in the hub before coming over here, which resulted in something pretty cool. Since the black light mode is currently enabled, each of the performing characters have been reskinned with these neon color palettes. To my understanding, these reskins are a reference to the black light merchandise that was originally produced by Funko in 2018. These guys are usually a bit rugged in appearance, so seeing them with these bright colors is a bit strange. Next up, we're going to head into night 1, but before clocking in, breaking games like this and my wild YouTube antics are made possible through the support of sponsors like Exter. You may have heard me talk about Exter before, because not only have they supported me for a while now, but I've been using their products for a few years too. Their walls are slim, RFID protected, and keep everything accessible with just a click of the button on the bottom. If you pair it with their solar-powered tracker, you'll be able to find your wallet if you lose it. I recently just picked up one of their sleek, water-resistant backpacks too, which will be perfect for how absurd some of these carry-on luggage restrictions are getting in airports. So if you want to grab some of their amazing products as well, be sure to click my link in the description below and use code HScoped to get up to 55% off during their holiday sale. And of course, a big thanks to Exter for continuing to support me as a creator. Now heading into night 1, we can turn the lights on and get a better idea of how this map actually functions. First off, the darkness that surrounds the player's office is more than just basic lighting effects. On either side of the player, there are black barriers placed in the doorways that obscure our view of the halls. When you activate the lights, these barriers are unloaded, which allows us to see beyond the door. And speaking of these barriers, they're used elsewhere in this map as well. One of them is used to block both ends of the hallways, and the other is placed in front of the restroom's entrance. If we head over to Pirate's Cove, there's a sign out front that reads, "Sorry, out of order." This very same sign can be found in the hub as well, only it's hidden just beneath the floor in front of the show stage. So now let's take a look at the animatronics themselves, because the way they navigate this map is pretty interesting. Unlike the first FNAF game, which is made of pre-rendered images where the animatronics simply warp between locations, we can actually watch these guys as they move throughout the pizzeria. The cameras will be blocked by static at the beginning and end of these walking cycles, but when viewing this from a different perspective, we can see how they snap into their idle positions. It's super cool watching these creepy animatronics walking through the pizzeria, and it's especially unsettling when they stop and turn to the player in the doorway. Foxy isn't much different than the others, as he will also snap between the stages of his approach, and when he begins running, he will be moved to the end of the hallway before sprinting to our office. If our office door is closed when he reaches it, he will immediately unload. Although he is not physically present, we can hear him attacking the door, and opening it before this interaction finishes will result in us getting jump scared. On the topic of our animatronic foes, something I was curious about is what happens to them when they're not visible on any cameras. There are circumstances where the animatronics cannot be found anywhere within the map, and by moving the camera out of bounds when this occurs, we'll see that they are stored way off to the side. What's interesting though, is that Freddy does not behave the same as the others. Instead of being placed where the others are, Freddy is moved way beneath the map itself. And speaking of Freddy, as he makes his way towards the player, there are a few locations he can appear in, including a couple where we can only see his eyes glowing in the dark. Turning the lights on, we're able to observe him in all his glory. And that's not always a good thing, because when he's staring at the camera from the restrooms, he's actually clipping through the ground. Freddy is leaning around the corner of the women's restroom, and upon closer inspection, his feet are sticking down beneath the floor. This is not as spooky as you think it is, Freddy. Now, while filming, I got jump scared by one of the animatronics, but when I moved the camera over to the office, there was nothing there. As it turns out, the jump scares in this level actually take place pretty far from the map itself. Way up above the pizzeria, we will find a large gray sphere. And this sphere is where the jump scare animations take place. So there are a couple of ways you can get jump scared in this location, including leaving the door open when they're standing in the doorway, failing to close the door when Foxy charges your office, and leaving the light on when an animatronic passes by. The moment a jump scare occurs, the player camera will be warped into that gray sphere out of bounds. And although I wasn't able to get a very good shot of it, we can see that our attacker is quickly moved inside with us. Moving the camera back down to the office while this happens is pretty interesting though, because as this animation is happening, the camera screen and control panel have been unloaded. The buttons on top, however, are still intact, except they're just floating there now. Of course, we can watch the jump scares themselves in bullet time, and it's pretty neat. As you can see, they're mostly faithful recreations of the original animations in FNAF 1, and it's cool to see them not only in a fully 3D space, but also from a perspective we're not typically able to. After the animation finishes, a small rectangle of static appears and fills the camera until we are taken to the game over screen. After arriving on this map, there are 2 buttons in front of us, one taking us back to the hub and the other restarting the level. There's also a TV on the table in front of us displaying the classic game over screen from the first game. Moving the camera back, we can see that this area surrounded by curtains rests on a piece of red checkered flooring. But beyond the curtain itself, it just comes to an end. Just beneath the floor, we can also find a bit of text reading, "You are dead." Now, we will be coming back to this area in just a bit, but for now, I want to talk about Night 5. So in order to access Night 5, you must hit the black light switch on the left side of the level select monitor. Doing so will change the lighting in the hub itself, and everything will take on a neon appearance, including the balloons and the glitch trap that is standing behind us in the restroom area. When the switch is active, the level select menu is also changed, as it now only contains the black light levels. These are levels with a bit higher difficulty, and they're also visually altered in some way or another. As for Night 5 itself, we can see that the moment we load in, everything is in black and white. That's not the only thing that's changed, as the cupcake on our desk has also been swapped with our nightmare variant. For the most part, this night progresses as normal, except for the doors and lights glitching out randomly. As for the animatronics themselves, the models we see roaming the pizzeria are unchanged, but the jump scare models are a different story. What you're looking at now is Neon Chica's jump scare, and as you can see, they are a bit different in appearance. On this night, each of the main cast has been replaced by their blacklight alternatives. This includes Neon Chica, Dark Freddy, Neon Bonnie, and Burnt Foxy. Dark Freddy seems to be heavily based on Shadow Freddy, who appears in FNAF 2, and for more reasons than you'd first think. With the lighting effects turned on, they are solid black, except for their glowing white teeth and eyes. With these effects disabled though, we'll see that they share the same purple tint as Shadow Freddy as well. Only, now their eyes and teeth are solid red. Neon Bonnie is mostly desaturated in this level, appearing mostly black and gray, even with the grayscale effect turned off. They have a slightly more withered appearance, and with the lighting effects turned on, they are illuminated in a purplish color as this animation plays out. Finally, Burnt Foxy is just as his name insists, a severely burnt version of the original animatronic. Their left eye is a solid yellow color, and the exterior of their suit is covered in a charred, molten texture. Now, since we're taking a look at the jump scares, it wouldn't be fair if I didn't at least mention Mr. Cupcake. So, when we enter the game over screen after dying in a blacklight level, Mr. Cupcake will no longer be on top of the TV. Instead, they'll be sitting atop the table on our left. Trying to pick them up will result in the player being jump scared. But how does this work off camera? Well, as you can see, the moment we click on the cupcake, they will appear beneath the table and quickly move in front of the camera. After this animation ends, they'll be moved underneath the map, but their position is still tied to the player's camera, meaning they'll move around beneath the map as the player looks around. But with that, we've come to the end of the FNAF 1 levels in Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted. There's still a ton of cool stuff for us to check out in this game, so make sure you subscribe today so you won't miss what we cover next. Thanks for watching, and cheers!